Hey guys, so welcome to another Wednesday night youth group lesson here on YouTube and everything as we continue our online socially distanced youth group and everything. Glad you guys could join us, still stay connected. Thankful that we can still stay connected in some way, even if it's from a distance and all that. And hopefully these nights are hopefully still encouraging to you. I know it's not the same. I know it's not. And we definitely miss being together, but thankful that we at least have these opportunities to be able to still get together and everything. So glad that hopefully you're able to make it. Hopefully you'll be able to join us tonight. Let's see. Give a couple minutes for people to get kind of on here and get connected and everything. Trying to think of some of the announcements. So announcements, I mean, we're still obviously still distant. Camps, as I've mentioned before, are canceled. Unfortunately, we're still working through kind of what's going to come in the fall or spring. Hopefully we can do something to try to make up for summer camp and all that. I know some of you have asked, like, do we have any ideas? And the reality is not really right now, just because, like, we don't know what fall and even spring potentially is going to look like at this point. So I think kind of the first steps are kind of getting back to being able to like actually meet in person and all that. And then we can start kind of figuring that out of what a schedule is going to look like of, I don't know, doing a camp of some sort. So that's kind of the kind of plan for right now is, we don't have much of a plan. So I wish I could. I know I am a person who likes to plan. And so it's hard definitely on me as well of I want to have a plan, want to move forward. But at this point, it's kind of just a wait and see kind of approach as we kind of like figure stuff out. Okay. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And just kind of wanted to clarify with this. Hopefully if you heard on Sunday, like Lance in the announcements for the main service, he kind of addressed this a little bit, but just wanted on, right? I'm frozen. Let's see. Sorry if my internet is cutting out. I don't know why it's only bad when I do live stream on YouTube. I don't know why. I always check the speed and all that. It says I should be fine streaming or doing stuff, but for whatever reason, seem to always have trouble. I don't know why. Anyways, sorry about that. But yeah, so if you didn't catch Lance's announcement, I just want to like follow, make sure we're on the same page with like kind of why we're not meeting, right? Because again, I just want to make sure we are all on the same page. It isn't just like I don't want to meet with you guys or the leaders don't want to meet or something like that, right? It's not like, we don't want to deal with it, let's not meet. No, like, that's not what it is, okay? It is like we are trying to be submissive to the government and the kind of rules and guidelines they've given, to where one of the rules and guidelines they have given for churches is that children are not supposed to interact. They're supposed to stay kind of with their household units and not interact with children of other households. And unfortunately, right, like there's no distinction of like if youth are children or not, but kind of how it sounds like I think they are, like and stuff. So, and so that's why we're not meeting and everything is because of that. And so again, it's like we would love to, and we're trying to do like as much as we can, but that's kind of why we're not meeting. And that's why like you have college group or growth groups can meet in person because they're adults and all that. And so, and they have to follow certain protocols and like meeting outside right now and other stuff like that. But I don't know, youth aren't considered adults. And so that's why we're still meeting like this, and that's why it's just hard right now. Like, let's be honest, like it is hard. I know you guys are probably struggling some and it's hard. And I know just talking with leaders and stuff, like it's hard as well. Like, cause I think we can't do a lot of the stuff that we would normally do with you guys, not only at group, but even outside of group, like our certain discipleship groups or just like meeting with you guys, like one-on-one or stuff like that. Right. Like we can't really do that right now. And it's hard, right? It's hard to be able to do that. So I think, so if you continue to bear with us, continue to work with us as we're trying to figure out the best way to care and serve you guys, care for and serve you guys. And so that's kind of, again, where we're at. So I just wanted to clarify that, right? Clarify that. I know, I don't know. I know people are sick of Zoom and stuff like that, right? But that's what we have. And let's be honest, like the leaders, it's not like all of us are like super gung-ho of we love Zoom and all this stuff, right? Like, I don't know, we'd much rather be in person with you guys. And so we're all feeling it. And, but it's a great opportunity to still like trust God in all this, right? Trust him, trust his plan, right? As well as then hopefully you're able to watch Spencer's lesson, right? As well as just not neglecting the meeting up with one another, encouraging each other, even if it is from a distance and all that, being involved, being connected, right? And I know as Spencer talks about and as I talked about in the quarantine series, like it takes work. It really does. Like it really does take work to like invest in people even from a distance, right? It's a little easier when you're at group and you just kind of bump into people and, oh, okay. But now you actually have to go out of your way to reach out to people and it can be hard. Okay. So I'm praying for all you guys, praying for you that hopefully you can still be growing, maturing in the faith during this time and really wanting to still be plugged in, involved in all that. So, and hopefully, Lord willing, it won't be hopefully too much longer, but we'll kind of wait and see. All right. So that's my little spiel, my little announcements here and all that. So again, praying for you guys. If you ever need prayer for anything, obviously, like just contact me, contact one of the leaders. Like that's what we're here for. It's not like, oh, we're in quarantine. Like don't ever like talk to us, right? Like, no, we want to stay connected and all that with you guys. So if you ever need to talk or anything, definitely reach out to one of the leaders. Okay. And do that. All right. Cool. I guess hopefully that's enough time. Allow people to kind of get in here, join on the live stream. And so I guess let me start my recording actually. All right, cool. All right. So we're continuing in the book of Matthew. All right. So we're actually getting into Matthew this week. Last week, if you remember, kind of by way of review, right? We just kind of did an introduction to Matthew where we talked a little bit about like who wrote it, like the date, kind of the context, right? Like that was kind of the main thing, right? It was kind of like setting the stage so that this week we can kind of hit the ground running a little bit, right? Which we're going to do. We're going to get in there. We're going to deal with the first 17 verses of this chapter. Okay. And so I'm excited to get into this with you guys and everything. And so I believe the notes hopefully are in the description. I'm pretty sure I posted that. If not, they're somewhere. So yeah, like they should be in the description, right? The notes should be there and everything. And so if you want to open those up, follow along, you can follow along in that. I put blanks again. I don't know, maybe I could get some feedback at some point from you guys of like, do you want blanks on the notes right now? Or would you prefer to just have the notes filled in so it's easier to follow along? Like, I don't know what you guys would prefer. And apparently they're not in the description. Okay. I think I did it and then didn't save it, which shame on me. All right. Let's see. Sorry. I'm staring at my computer. There we go. They are now in the comments. Okay. So that's where the notes are. So you can open those up, look at those. So again, like maybe feedback of, do you like the blanks? Do you not want blanks right now? Because I don't know if you're actually filling them out or not. But yeah, so there's the notes. You can follow along and everything as we get into the first 17 verses of Matthew. Okay. And if you're looking at the handout, kind of the title and what we're going to be talking about is the royal genealogy, right? And so that's how Matthew kicks off his gospels with a genealogy. And that's what we're going to be focusing on tonight. So, okay. And so kind of the theme, right? If you remember from last week, the theme of Matthew that we're going to be kind of doing and kind of unpacking here as we go through Matthew is Jesus, the King and Messiah. Okay. Jesus, the King and Messiah. Okay. So, that's what we're going to be dealing with. That's our theme. That's going to be the thing that gets really driven into your mind over the next couple of years as we go through Matthew. Okay. But really unpacking Jesus, the King and Messiah. That is what Matthew's goal in writing this gospel is to point out, right? He's showing that Christ is the Messiah. He is the true King of Israel, right? And that's what he's showing in his gospel, right? That's his emphasis. That's his focus. And we're even going to get, I was trying to figure out how to really like unpack this, okay? Because kind of the structure, as again, if you have the notes, what it is, it's kind of it up like verse 1, then you have verses like 2 through 16, then verse 17, right? So kind of 3 parts of this section we're going to be talking about tonight. But it's going to be probably a little more like front heavy, okay? Just so you guys know, like we're going to kind of dive in deep on verse 1 a little bit here, and then we're going to move more quickly through the rest of verses, okay? So don't don't get like discouraged of like, oh man, like he spent all this time, we're still only on verse 1, we have 16 more verses. It'll go way faster because again, if you have your Bibles open, hopefully you do, right? In Matthew, looking at it, it's a genealogy, right? Like a bunch of names. So there's not going to be like a whole lot of depth. We're going to be like mining from that, like as we go through, but so getting more kind of big picture ideas. Okay. All right. So let's get into this. Okay. All right. Verse 1. So you have the introduction. Okay. So if you have the handout, blank there is the introduction. Okay, where verse 1 really serves as this kind of little prologue introduction to this section, okay? Not just these first 17 verses, probably like all of chapters 1 and 2, the whole kind of infancy narrative of Jesus, okay, is you kind of have this first verse. So let's look at that. It says, the book of genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham, okay? And maybe you're thinking right away, like, wait, we're going to spend a lot of time on like that little sentence, like I don't know, it's not much there. There's actually a lot there. We're going to unpack it. It's going to be good. All right. So we're going to go through kind of like phrase by phrase through this a little bit. Okay. As we unpack it, because really like this is setting the stage, like I said, for like these next couple chapters, but I think also you see some themes here that are going to be prevalent throughout the rest of Matthew. Okay. So, we need to really grab a hold of what Matthew's saying here, pay attention to it, understand it, and then we can move on to that, okay? And a lot of this stuff is very important, very crucial, actually, and I'm hoping that after, like, we talk about it, that you'll see why we needed to slow down and see all this, okay? So it isn't just something we hopefully just read through and pass over, right? And the reality is we normally do that with genealogies, right? We normally just kind of read through and like, all right, cool, names. Or we might not even read through. We might get through like a couple and like, I can't pronounce these. Next, right? Like move on to the next chapter, right? But they're very important, okay? And that's what I'm going to try to show tonight, okay? All right, so let's look at the first phrase we see here, which is the book of the genealogy. Okay, the book of the genealogy. This is the opening phrase of Matthew's gospel, okay? And again, it might not seem that significant, but it really is. All right. And let's unfold this. Okay. So this phrase, right, the book of the genealogy, this same phrase is found in like it's called the Septuagint, like the Greek translation of some of the Old Testament, right? Like, so Genesis, okay, was originally written in Hebrew, but then they translate in Greek, and sometimes the New Testament quote that. Okay. And so that same phrase, the book of the genealogy, okay, is found in Genesis 2, verse 4, as well as Genesis 5, verse 1, okay? And again, and so this is important, right, because you're making this connection with Genesis. And so in Genesis, right, the whole structure of the book of Genesis is centered on, like, genealogies, okay? That's kind of how the book is divided up, is by various genealogies, okay? And you might see it in your Bible. It says, like, these are the generations of da-da-da, right? Like, and these are generations of Jacob. These are generations of Abraham, right? Like, stuff like that. And that, like, is the signal of, hey, you're, like, kind of concluding a section and starting a new one, okay? And so that's how the book is organized, okay? And now you might be thinking, okay, that's nice. Who cares, right? Like, I thought that's interesting that Genesis is structured with genealogies, but I thought we were studying Matthew. what's the deal, right? Like, bear with me a second. We're going to make that connection. So let's do that. Okay. And so, but what you need to understand with like Genesis, okay, like there's a reason why it's structured the way it is, why there's an emphasis on genealogies. Okay. And the first reason, okay, we're going to look at two. The first one has to do with Genesis 3:15. Okay. Genesis 3:15, which some of you might be familiar with. Okay. This verse takes place like after the fall, right? After Adam and Eve sin, God is proclaiming kind of curses and judgments, but there's also some promises, some good promises there. And 3:15 is one of them, as he's cursing like the serpent, right? Like who's working like kind of with Satan and all that, right? Genesis 3:15 states, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Okay, and really, so we have this promise of an offspring or a seed who's going to come and he's going to crush the serpent's head, right? Like he's going to destroy the serpent, right? Which again is affiliated with Satan. Okay, so it's like this idea is he's crushing like Satan essentially, right? And so you have this promise all the way back in Genesis 3 at the very beginning, right? Like there's going to be one to come who's going to essentially fix everything, right? The fall just happened. Sin has entered the world. Things are bad, but there's going to be one who's going to come and reverse all that. He's going to change that, right? He's going to redeem mankind. He's going to fix it, okay? And so you have this promise of this seed, this offspring, okay? And so then how this ties in with like the structure of Genesis is you have these genealogies all throughout to essentially show that, hey, God's plan is moving forward, because if you need someone like this seed, right, this offspring to come, you need people, you need seed, like a seed, you need people being born and like people having children and stuff, right? And so a genealogy, each genealogy that goes by, okay, I don't know if I'm frozen again. I'm sorry. Okay, so with each genealogy that goes by, we're moving closer to the seed, right? And so that's kind of the structure. And then the second reason why the genealogies, if I can talk, are important in Genesis, because they also, as they are heading towards the seed, are also narrowing, right? Like they have a narrowing effect where it starts to limit who this seed could be. Who is this offspring that was mentioned in Genesis 3:15, right? Because it starts general. It's like the offspring of the woman, which is Eve, right? Which it means like they're going to be like a human, right? That doesn't really narrow it down. But then through Genesis, you see this narrowing, right? It's like, okay, through like Abraham, through Isaac, through David, right? And so you start to see this narrowing continue, right? And so, right, do you start to see maybe why Matthew starts with a genealogy here? Why he mentions a genealogy and why he does this genealogy is because essentially, like, what is he doing? He's essentially saying, right, that like what Genesis began, I'm finishing, right? Like Genesis, you had this promise of a seed and this narrowing starting to take place, and that happened throughout all the Old Testament. And Matthew is like, I'm here to say that this is finally coming true. Like this is finally occurring. That seed, that offspring has come, and his name is Jesus. Okay? Like he is finishing what Genesis began. And so by mentioning the book of the genealogy and doing this genealogy, right, Matthew is making that purposeful connection back to Genesis. So we see that, we understand, and this would be so prevalent for like the Jewish audience, right, that he's writing to, where it's like, hey, remember those genealogies? Remember what we've all been looking for? He's here, right? This is the one to come. Jesus is that seed. He is that offspring of Genesis 3:15. He is the one who's going to crush the serpent. He is going to be the one to fix everything, do it all, right? This is the one. Okay? And so, and that's like one of the major reasons why Matthew begins his gospel in this way, is to make that connection, to connect back to the Old Testament, to show like, hey, we're building off of what the Old Testament was expecting, right? Like we're bringing that all to this climax, this ending in a sense where it's like, hey, Jesus is here, right? The Messiah is here. The seed is here, right? And his name is Jesus. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense, right? So you can start to see like why this is purposeful, because you wouldn't necessarily think like, why would you start like an account of Jesus' life? You wouldn't just think like, oh, let's just like write a genealogy, right? Like Matthew does it on purpose to make that connection back, especially to Genesis, as well as just the Old Testament in general, to show, hey, that seed you've been looking for, that offspring you've been looking for, he's here. Okay, he's come. And that's huge. Okay, and I don't think we always understand that. Okay. And to confirm that a little bit, that's kind of like his point here, is notice the next phrase, okay, where it's the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, okay, Jesus Christ. And so we'll get into like the specific of like the name of Jesus like next week when we're talking about like verse 21 and stuff. But for now, we're going to focus on the part that says Christ, okay? And I think a lot of times we have this thought that like Christ is like Jesus' last name or something like that, where it's like Jesus Christ, yeah, like Mr. Christ or something. Like that's not his last name, right? But instead, Christ is a title, right? Christ is a title. And it's really, right, it's like the Greek translation of the Hebrew Mashiach, which is like the Messiah. Okay, and the Messiah, which means like the anointed one. Okay, and while there are many kind of people that were like anointed ones in a sense, like in the Old Testament, there developed this theme that there is one in particular, right, who's connected with like that seed, right, from the line of David, that he'll be that anointed one. And so this term Messiah, right, became more specifically about this one that, like, say from Genesis 3:15 and onward, the son of David, all these different things, right? Like that's who the Messiah was, this one who they've been waiting for. Okay, so again, Matthew is confirming this by saying this is the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, Jesus the Messiah, right? The one who we've all been waiting for. Okay, and so again, I think like we throw around the name or title Christ, right, so easily. And I don't think we fully grasp a lot of times like the significance of that, the implications of this phrase that, like, especially for the Jews, like when Matthew's like writing this, right, this would be huge, right? That he's again saying, this is the one, right? We've been waiting for this one since Genesis 3:15. So thousands of years have gone by and finally he's here. Right? The Messiah's come, okay? And that is huge, okay? Like the one you've been longing for, the one you've been waiting for, he has come, okay? And so we have to see that, like, because if we don't, right, we're missing so much of the glory of Christ, right? Like, again, when we just kind of skip the Old Testament and forget it and just kind of start in the New Testament, we miss so much of that background, so much of that anticipation that really shows the glory and grandeur of Christ, right? Where we see really who he is, right? Like he is the glorious Messiah that has been prophesied from of old, right, for thousands of years, and he's finally come. This is a big deal, right? We can just read through like a verse like this and be like, oh, that's cool. But for like a Jew in this time, that would be mind-blowing, right? Like universe-shattering, a big announcement to say, hey, this is the genealogy, this is the story, this is the account of the Messiah, okay? All right, so big deal. But then notice he just doesn't describe him as the Christ, right? But then he expands on that, right, with these next couple phrases. The next one is what? The son of David, okay? The son of David. All right, and this also connects with showing Jesus as the Messiah, but in particular, right, it emphasizes, because when you think of David, what do you think of? Probably like King David, right? Like he's a king. And so again, Matthew is drawing this emphasis, emphasizing the king side of this, the royal aspect of this, okay? And so remember, like I said, like that, part of that narrowing effect of the seed would be through the line of David, right? And so we saw that he would be a son of David and he'd also be a king. That's what would characterize this Messiah, okay? Like in 2 Samuel 7, This is the promise that God gave to David. Okay, starting in verse 12 of chapter 7, it says, when your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. When he commits iniquity, I will discipline him with the rod of men, with the stripes of the sons of men. But my steadfast love will not depart from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away from before you. And your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me. Your throne shall be established forever. Okay, so there is this son, there's this one that's going to come in, and he's going to establish that throne forever, right? Like God is establishing, hey, the Davidic throne is going to last. And this son who's going to come from David, come from his line, okay, will be that one who establishes that, right? So there's this aspect, again, where the Messiah, part of what's included of being the Messiah is they would be a king, right? They're from the line of David. They're royalty, right? And so by Matthew calling Jesus like not only the Christ, the Messiah, he then again expands on it to emphasize he's also the son of David. He is the true king. He is the rightful heir to the throne. Okay? And so that really brings us like another kind of whole major purpose of why Matthew starts with this genealogy is not only the connection back to Genesis like we talked about, okay, but also to provide like this essentially royal genealogy, this royal lineage to show that Jesus is the rightful heir to the throne, that he is the true king of Israel. Okay, that's the other kind of major purpose of why Matthew starts here. Okay, and so remember our theme. What's our theme of Matthew? Jesus, the King and Messiah, right? And we see that right off the bat, that's established, right? He's showing Jesus, the Christ, the Messiah, as well as the Son of David, the King, the rightful heir to the throne. So we see that right away, okay, this element. All right. And so that's why we see like in this genealogy, there's an emphasis on David, and you trace Christ's lineage back to David and all that, okay, is to establish this fact. All right, the last part of verse 1 in this introduction is he's also called the son of Abraham, okay, also called the son of Abraham. And this is kind of like an interesting connection, okay, because one, Abraham was an important figure, right, in the Old Testament, but and kind of the founder of like Israel in a sense, right, like that's kind of Abraham, right? Not founder of Israel, I don't know, you know what I mean. One of the founding fathers of the nation, okay, the patriarchs. And so, but kind of why this is probably important and why he brings this up here, why Matthew also mentions the son of Abraham, right? Because one, he does trace Jesus back to Abraham, okay, we'll see that in a second here. But then also there's importance here because back in Genesis, we keep going back to Genesis. That's why you need to read Old Testament. Okay, back in Genesis, right, you had God promise, right, to Abraham that it would be through him and his line, right, that all the families of the earth would be blessed. Back in Genesis 12, okay, that it's through him and his line, right, that through his offspring, that the families of the earth, the nations, will be blessed. Okay, and that's part of that narrow we're going to talk about, where it's going to be through Abraham, right? And so Matthew, right, is showing like how all these families of the earth are going to be blessed. It's going to be through who? Jesus, right? Jesus. And so he's beginning to show, right, like Jesus is the Messiah, okay? And as that Messiah, he is the true king of Israel that will fulfill God's covenant made to David, okay? But also as the Messiah, okay, he's going to be the one to bring blessing to all the peoples and families of the earth, right, in order to fulfill the promises made to Abraham, okay, that this is the one. He's fulfilling all of it, okay? This is the one, okay, that you have all these promises of the Old Testament, and Matthew just one to fulfill. I think I might have frozen again. Let's see. Give it a second. Okay. So to make that one statement, essentially, right, like that, hey, the one to fulfill all those promises, right? The seed of Genesis 3:15, the promise of the one who's going to bring blessing to all the nations of the earth, the one who is going to be the son of David reigning the throne forever, right? Like all those promises, the one to fulfill that is here, right? And his name is Jesus. Okay? That's what we have essentially all